Hey, so I made a couple changes to the charting system. It should be brighter and the moves should be a little clearer. So just let me know and we'll go from there. But this should make it clearer. And if not, I'll figure out something else. But what I want to do today is I'm going to go through what I think are some ideas for the upcoming week or two that people need to start taking a look at and start being proactive. And that's one thing that we're going to start focusing on a little bit. It's just getting people to be a little more proactive. So this is a huge winner that a lot of people feel that they have missed at this point. But I just want to show something. Right? You see how right to this line. Right? Look how we stop right there and respect this trend. This is on the lower end of the trend. So if you have this trend line drawn and you pull back, when everyone's panicking, you could actually add, and you could look for a little trigger in here, the 5, the 8, and this is the daily. But let's just go through this and really take a look at what's going on here. I know everybody sees this, right? We all see this little level here and how we closed above it. But the larger level that we really have to look at is this 131.71 level, and really what we're looking for is an indication that the trend has changed. Well, how do we do that? Well, we do that by starting to look to see if there's other little trends that it's respecting. So here we have another trend that's down, and what is it doing? So this little spot right here, this has become support. So this becomes fairly easy. Now, what I would look for is I would look for a higher daily high, and then you could go and test this. I refer to this as devil horns, just how I learned it. When you have two red bars like this that pop up on wicks, and it's exactly what happened, right? We sold down, so from here we've gone from 118 all the way down to 104, from 130. It is a decent move down, but we're still in a fairly decent uptrend here. And now we've tested these moving averages, and now we're still closing above them. So this should definitely be on your watch list. And also look at the volume accelerating and how this is coming in. And really quickly, we'll just do a weekly on it and just look. I mean, the weekly's through the roof. This was your first red bar. And this, we already closed above the first red bar. So we're already at an all-time high close again on the weekly. People aren't realizing that because they're just looking at daily. Please look at different time frames. It gives you a completely different picture. So let's go and look at GAN and see what's going on here, because this is interesting because everybody loved this one and then it just fell out of favor for whatever reason. So let's just go through this, and you can see we've had a bunch of lines on here from before. So let's remove all rays, and let's remove all horizontal lines for a moment. So you can see the trend, and you can see this huge cup. And this cup and base is about 15 points, roughly, from tip to bottom, right? Roughly 15 points. So that gives us an indication on what we should be looking for as far as a move through here. I don't know why people try to keep that a secret, but that's really just a rough back of the envelope, what may happen, and not considered being overextended. But let's keep going. So we have this level up here. And we have to shrink this vert just a little bit so we can get in here. Okay. So you can see this 28.95 level, right? And how we're right up against it. This needs to flatten out a little bit more in here. Possibly, as I refer to them, rejection. And you get a little rejection here. Comes back, fills this gap, and then fills on the second time. That may be how it plays out. But if we clear over this 28.95 level on GAN, you definitely need to be taking a look at what's going on there. This is pretty significant on a weekly chart, and if we could pop back into this channel, that $45 target can be very, very easily achieved because we have no resistance. Now, I don't like how the volume is falling off weekly, but we did have a lot of excitement on this name for a while. So let's just keep on rolling. Let's get rid of all these lines and start over. Okay, so we're going to start here with Gbtc, and essentially I do this for the guys that want to hear about Bitcoin. This is very interesting, and I don't want to get into, is this the future and all that. We're here to just look at charts. So let's just look at charts. Now, I have this huge flagpole. So whether this was labeled ABC or Bitcoin or Syrup does not matter to us, right? We are technicians and we look at technical patterns to determine probability and process and where we can buy and sell something or vice versa. So by looking at this 33 level is now support. We have not closed over it since breaking above it. This is support. This one no longer really matters. So this is our support level. Until we break this, I'm really not concerned about this. I do find it interesting how we closed right on the 5-week, but I would imagine, and I haven't looked at it this weekend, but what's usually interesting is on the futures only trade during the week. So if you're trading Bitcoin, the more volatile moves happen on the weekend because you don't have the institutional players and the retail can knock it around a little faster. So keep that in mind. Some people are simply buying Gbtc on Fridays and selling on Monday. So let's just see what's going on here, right? We're breaking this wedge. But if we get a higher high week, which I think that we could, the way that we're set up here on this close, I think we could get a higher high week. And if we do, we're going right back to here. This is a fairly simple trade. And there's a couple different stocks that you can trade this with. But if you just want to stick with the Gbtc to do it, that's fine because of liquidity. I mean, I know people are bidding this one up over it. I'm sorry, hold on one second, and this is going to go the wrong way. There we go. Let me get there it is. So, I mean, this is the weekly on MicroStrategy, MSTR, right? And you can see what's going on here. So this is way ahead of the Bitcoin move. And the reason for this is liquidity. People can buy this, right? And now this has become the de facto common share ETF if you want to be in Bitcoin. What Michael Saylor did here was sickly brilliant. And he's been paid handsomely for it. I mean, you can just see the move. And it was a very smart move. So, this is really ahead of itself. And this is trading based upon liquidity. If you want to be in this, my advice to you, and you're looking for the trade, is to trade the Gbtc and use the levels that we talked about. So, home, let's go through this one. So, home, essentially, we're basing, we have a little support here on the daily. I kind of like how we respected the 21-day. Now, this is from a previous video that we talked about. And as always, please consider subscribing and turning on notifications because this information is timely, as you guys have seen through these videos. But you see how we broke this wedge? And this is really interesting because look at how we're respecting the 21-day. Look at how this is getting ready to cross, right, to the upside. Frankly, I don't even know what this company does. It might be the same at home I traded in the 90s. But look at this. Look at how this is setting up. Now, the low volume bothers me, but this support level and this base is huge. And, I can do back of the envelope, but, the bigger the base, the bigger the move. It's just a fact. So this is really interesting that we've been consolidating for about 7 months, and here we go. So we drill back into this a little bit, and let's see what's really going on here on the weekly. On a secular level, we've broken the downtrend, right? And here, and we talk about these right shoulder failure patterns, right, which I refer to as, RSH, just for short. But look at how we're respecting this, right? If we clear this after coming down like this would be the first higher high on a secular level since we were here in 18. What does that mean? Well, that means that if we clear this, our next target is this $41. And let's just walk through this trade pretty quickly. So on how I would look at this. I would look at this on a higher high above any close on the daily using the weekly number above 25. I'm going to become very interested. And I would just simply use a close below this on the daily as my stop. And if I get knocked around a couple times and lose $1, I don't really care because it's not the 28.44 I'm looking at. I'm trying to get in the move for this, right? So for me to lose $1 a couple times while I'm using a weekly line, I don't really care. I can do it 4 or 5 times, doesn't matter. I'm trying to get to this 15 points. So that's how I would look at this. So let's go to an oldie that we've done before. This was from another video and just left it up. But well, I'll just leave it up. If you're interested, this is from a percentage breakdown on how to trim, and I think that's in the indicator section on the playlist. So here we have Kirkham, right? And we bought this back at $13 in November in the newsletter. And we traded out of it. I think we finally blew the rest out around 20, 21 bucks when this started to happen. So we can see what's happening here, right? And we can see how we're starting to move back up and step up, cut and step, cut and step, cut, step, right? So stocks have personalities. And this one is clearly telling you what it is. What's it doing here? So it's doing the same exact pattern. So you have a level here, which is really interesting at that 28.29 level. And if we clear above that and this little wedge, let's see if we can pull this back a little bit so you can see this clearer. Right, you see that little wedge? So if we can get a close above this, which we have not been able to get a close above this 28.29 really, have we? One day, but it was really weak. And we can get through this level on solid volume, that is definitely something that we would be interested in reviewing again. So put this one on your list as well to take a look at. So this was actually something that I don't really follow, but there's got a couple guys that are, or I think they're guys, that follow me on Twitter, and they keep throwing out these therapeutic ideas. And I'm not in the space, so I understand the basics of them, but this is fascinating, what's going on here. This is an enormous, enormous base, and this thing can move fast. Now, and you've seen how it can move before, but look at this and how we're moving through these. And now here was our close. We closed here once, and we had a major reversal down. You know, here's your bearish engulfing, which signified the move down. We never came back from it. Bearish engulfing again. Stocks have patterns. So here we are, right? So maybe we get another bearish engulfing. Maybe we don't. But watch this. This is set to move, and this is set to move early in the week with that kind of close. And let's just look at this on a weekly basis. So, and I would recommend everybody put alert, even if you're a long-term investor, you want to put alerts on these so that you're notified of them. So make sure whatever charting software you're using, you can do that on. So, but look at this 116 level. Look how we close above it. Now on the daily, we looked at the volume and we were like, but here at the selling week, this is greater. And this is kind of starting to tick up a little bit. I might start seeing something like this. So this should definitely be on your radar, and this could be something that moves starting on a Monday or a Tuesday. You know, do watch for like the bearish engulfings. You can see how that has happened, but you know, be aware of it and honor your stops. So Mara, let's do a daily first and then come back. It looks like we did this on a monthly before with where all these lines were. So that's where we'll stay then. So here's Mara, and without getting into what they do and everything else, let's just look at price. And what we're seeing here, and look at this, well, I don't really have that break, right? But I have this setting up, and I have a higher high here, and I have this crossover. But this is kind of interesting. I want to focus on this. Well, I actually wrote down notes, which makes it a little faster to go through these. I just have to peruse the notes. But you see this? See how we came down? Closed, closed. That became resistance. Flips become support. And then now you're here. Now what are you forming? Got a little wedge here. So what is this? What is this setting us up for? Right? Because what we're doing is trying to get it at the best price. Well, if we flip this, and we get over this, our pivot is $25. So your pivot is $25 on this, and we can see if that happens, and then we would test this 28 level, and then we can drill down now and take a look at what does that mean. Well, this 28 level, we try to get to that 25, which we just talked about, which just happens to be our pivot, which would be a higher high on the weekly and an outside bar, right? So far we've opened and closed all within this range. This is a bull flag on the weekly. So let's see what's going on with that. But you have a little wedge right here in that, right? I mean, like, here's your wedge. Hold on 1 second. There we go. So here's your little wedge, and you tried to break above that, but you really didn't, did you? Look how close and respected that. But we are closing above the 5 week. So I would still use this 25 as my trigger, and then we're going to here, and we're going to watch how we act at that 28.55 level. But when we drill down, we can see, look at this volume. I mean, this is setting up, and I don't want to get into what they do because it's not germane to the conversation, but something like this could move very fast and go to this $55 level. And you know, on all these charts, this doesn't follow through. So let's just look at it, this, M-A-R-A. So this should definitely be on your radar as one that has a lot of potential, and 25 is your continuation point, period, and you should be setting alerts. So let's draw down into the daily on this one. So you should be able to see this level and how we're rejecting, tried, rejected, can't close above it, right? So you're really on this level here. Sorry, that would be helpful if you knew what I was talking about. So we're really on this level here of 69.27. And what we're seeing, you know, is that right here, 74 would be new all-time highs, right? And all we have to do is close above this to challenge this. And there's no really resistance in here. So this is kind of interesting, and this is setting up. And I would put this on your list. It's a much shorter term idea because we don't have a lot of patterns. And as I always say, if I don't have at least 30 bars statistically, I really can't look at it. So it makes it much harder, which is why when new issues you drill down and then build the time intervals up. So, but you see what's going on here? Like, look at these lines. All you have to do is get above this and we should push. I'm not crazy about this volume being over this volume. However, look how the stock's acting. So let's just see what happens and how we play out. And look at this little line and how we're respecting this. It's very simple to see where your stop should be. Your stop would be right around here. You're looking for a close above this to challenge this. And if we challenge that, you know, we're in a 50-point, you got a 20-point range here. So you could be looking at roughly back of envelope. You're looking at about a $90 target price. mRNA, and I've been in this thing on and off forever, so there's going to be, we'll go here. Well, it doesn't want to come over, but we're not going to waste the day on it. Let's go here. Okay, so let's start on the weekly to get a sense of what's going on here. Look at this close. This is a huge green hammer on the weekly. And look how it comes right to the 178.50. And if we flip that line, you know, and you get to the 179 level, something like that, you could see a lot of buying come in that they feel that they're going to miss this one. And you can really see what's going on here, right? Like if you start looking at these wedge lines. So you can kind of see how they go, right? So this is the old trend. The old trend becomes support and resistance. We talked about that before in one of the videos. But you can see this. And I think that this could push here. I'm not crazy about the lower volume. But, you know, you look at the monthly, it probably might be hard because you really can't see anything with these long bars. But look at how this one almost was a bullish engulfing on a monthly chart. I mean, that's sick. You know, that's so rare to see on a monthly chart. So there's a lot of volume coming in here. Now, there's a tremendous amount of selling here. I mean, that's the highest volume on that month. But let's look what's going on here. And I really think that, you know, it's news-driven, but let's get rid of everything. Okay. And let's start here. We have a better look. Sometimes I leave these lines on, and it makes it much harder for people to truly understand this. So this is your bear flag, right? This was a bear flag. This was very clearly a bear flag. And this was a bear flag that was in a rising channel. And people always get excited when they see rising channels. They don't understand that they're bearish. So this, you could see this move. We crack here, look at that 5 and 8, which was in that other video we went over, right? Look how that signifies what's supposed to happen here. Boom. Look at this crossover on the 5 and 8. What happens? So they're not always perfect, but it's interesting to look at them if you're in a stock that's in a major uptrend. So you can find little pivot points. But let's look at what's going on here. So a close above this level to the 179 level hops us back into this channel. And we have a fairly deep base here, and this could move. I don't know if it has an NVAX move, which has just been a beast, but this is setting up, and I don't know if there's news that's due out or anything. I'm just looking at the chart. There may be news that could hit this, and this could be a binary event, in which case you don't want to be involved with it, But I'm not really sure on that. So let's get rid of all these horizontal lines. This is Microsoft, and this needs to be on your list. You need to be looking at this one for sure. This is really very interesting for a big cap on what's happening here. And I just want to point out a couple things. So this is the weekly on Microsoft. Look how we closed just above that. Look how that low. Look how that low just happens to be the high and the close. And then we just ripped. And we made an all-time high on the weekly, on Microsoft, right? And this is set to go. This has a really deep base for what this is. You really don't see this very often. But, you have a 30-point base on this. So, we could see 275, 300. This could move. And look at what's going on here. And we talk about this. And someone mentioned it the other day that watches the videos. I talk a lot about the patterns and how we're point, and you can see the points and how they get tighter. And we're going to take a moment on this so people can understand this again. And this is a pattern that people have looked for ever. And it works. But you can see right? You can see tighter, 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 tighter. Gets over here, boom. What happens when it gets above one of the tighter areas? It explodes up. This is referred to as a contraction, velocity contraction pattern. Minervi, perfected this thing and perfected these moves. And it's worth reading his books. But when you see this, you can see how we came back down and we respected right here and held. Then we reversed. And now look what's going on. And this is something that I really focus on. Look how tight this range is getting. So we're setting up here. And I would keep this on your radar. So net, we got stopped out of on that sell-off the last time we were in it. That was here. We bought it a while ago. We made money off of it. But let's just clean this up completely so we can get a better look at what's going on here. Let's remove all annotations. And let's just go here. Net. Okay. Oh, that's not right. So net. Oh, okay. So what's going on here and why should we pay attention to this? Well, we have earnings coming up, and I don't like buying before earnings, but this stock has done exceptionally well before earnings and usually has a decent run up into earnings. And then last time we actually, exploded to the upside of earnings. So I'm very interested in this stock, and I think this could be a massive winner for the year. So, software is eating the world, and these guys are right in the middle of it. So, but you can see this pattern, and you can see where we're at, but look at how we're respecting these averages. Look how the 8 is crossing. Look how the 5 crossed the 8, right? Look how they're all pointing up. This is getting ready. I have volume completely drying up, which means I don't have any selling anymore, and the stock's moving. So we could see a supply issue here, and that would lead to, if we get major demand, it could lead to a spike, right through this 88.77 level. And this is clearly where you would want to be, be looking at this point for the pivot. NVAX, I walked through this a while ago on the news, and I was asked where I thought it could go in the news. This is where I wound up. I drew this line. This is what we came up with, and it's kind of funny. That's where we opened. So these lines have been there for weeks. But let's drill down into what's going on here, and let's get rid of some of these because now they're not as relevant. So let's remove all horizontal lines. We'll start there. We'll remove this. So this, okay. So let's look what's going on here. So we have clearly broken that level. On the weekly, this was before when we were looking at it and where it needed to break, and that obviously happened. But okay, so here you are, right? And on the other chart, on the daily, we can see that just happens to be very close to where we opened. So look at this move. I mean, this is really very powerful. And I keep waiting for some kind of pullback. I'm not sure what you're going to see here, but I would definitely put this on your radar and start using shorter time frames. I'm not into these vaccines as far as being able to speak about them on any level of proficiency, but this is kind of solid what's going on here. I mean, we're respecting every level. Usually after 11 days, we fill a gap. You'll fill a gap. You'll come in and touch the gap. This thing's just a honey badger. I mean, it has no intention of filling this gap in. Those days are over. And that's a really powerful move. So we could continue to see this move even higher. And we could continue to see it keep moving. And where can it go to? I mean, here's your monthly. And you can see how we broke this downtrend. We can get rid of this now. But you can see, where could we go to? 320. What was the high of this? 300. I'm off by 20 cents on a $300 stock. So that tells you what's a key resistance level. Now you want to do a count? Look at this monthly, right? Look at the monthly on this. So you have enormous potential here if we crack this 320 level. So at this point, what I would recommend doing with it is just take a look at the 300 level. And if we get through that and close above it on a weekly chart, even on a daily, you can try and play with it so that you can be in there. Just use shorter time frames for your stops. But I would definitely have this on my radar. This may not be over. This could move a lot higher. So it's setting up that way. And we're just not pulling back at all. So NVCR. Okay, so NVCR, this is through my notes real quick, I'll pop them up. So, okay, so we have a decent support here on the monthly, right? Where does that take us to the weekly? Okay, so it takes us to the same spot, right? What's going on here? See it? So you should be able to see these. And maybe the pause was too dramatic, but let's get through it. Right? You should start being able to see these the more you follow me and you follow these charts. Step, break, step, break. What's going to happen here? We're going to break and we're going to push higher. What's going on with these moving averages? They seem to be crossing up, right? There's another little signal. That's what's going to happen. This volume is concerning. So I would look at this one, and you have a little box going on here, but we're setting up for new highs. So let's look at the daily on this. And what's our nemesis, right, from the daily, this level? Can't really close above it. Done it a couple times, and then we fall back. So really what I'd like to do is see something on a much stronger chart. I'd like to see this close really high, like really above all this. Maybe looking at like a 177 close. I want some kind of confirmation, but I really think that this could move. It's been basing for multiple years and could push higher. So this one was actually in the newsletter, and let's review this. I don't need to. I can remove this because that's already happened. So I had multiple alerts there. So we talked about this rejection on Twitter and how this played out. But look at this cup that we're forming, okay? And this is all changed now. So we can remove this. Remove. That was our buy point. This was one of our boomerang signals that let us buy it at $78. This pattern allowed us to know what was going to happen, and then we tested the 8 and exploded up. But let's look at what's going on here, because I think that this is really interesting. And it's one of the reasons why I was if people that have been following the newsletter for a while, it's one of the reasons why I was so adamant about raising the level on this so fast. Okay, we're above the higher high here, right? And look at where the opening bar was on the daily, right there. And then we just went up, and we had basically a what? The highest close we've had since July. So I think this is setting up for a major push. And on dips, if you're not in from the newsletter, and I would recommend if you're listening to this, to subscribe to the newsletter. I think there's a link in the description. And take a look at this. This could really move, and we could get up to the 128, 130 level. But let's just look at this other spot real quick so we can understand why you want to overlay other charts. I mean, look at this from 2017, 2018. Look how we tried to get through it on this break, and we're rejected right here. And now look how we're closing above it after this wedge on the weekly. So this is telling you something's coming, and look at the weekly volume. It looks very good. And this is something that, on pullbacks, I would try to be there. If you're not in, then what I would do is look for 95 and see if we can get through 95, which was our first target, which you can see why that was a target, right? And now we're having an issue with it, closing above the 95 level. So we just have to close above 95, and then I don't see any real resistance to getting back to this 128 level, and then we can identify what to do with it there. But I think that's going to be an enormous winner for the newsletter folks. So didn't do this one yet, but let's do this one first because this is so interesting to me. So this was like a little dollar stock, which I don't usually play with, but then it grew up, right? And then now it's in adulthood. And look at this move. I mean, step up, boom, and you can see the patterns again, right? So we're setting up here again, and we're setting up a very large one. And what I would be looking for is something not too crazy. I mean, you could have a little, because this thing can move, and we've already cleared this wedge. So this can move fairly quickly. And see how this is declining super fast? Not just drifting off, right? I don't want just drifting off, but like when all this goes away, that just means all my selling's drying up, right? Look at it. I mean, look at the difference between this and this. So at that level, maybe the high of this, which would be 37.10, a continuation bar here, definitely gives us the opportunity to challenge this 39.56, but what it does do as well is this, right? It breaks above this wedge. So it's doing a couple things, which is kind of interesting, right? So all of a sudden we'd be breaking this wedge, okay, and we should be able to go and test this level fairly quickly. This 41.65 level. So this should be on your radar, and you have this bull flag, and it's kind of a higher bull flag, isn't it? Right? We're at the top of it. We're not in the middle. We're not at the low end of it. So it's telling you that there's buying going on here, and I would put this on your list. So PGNY. Let's go here and start on the daily. So just by looking at this was something we were in earlier and played around with, but look at this. And here's that pattern we talk about. Maybe I should just do a quick video on that pattern sometime. But you see this? See how we undercut major support? Open below it, which we always talk about how they do that to scare people, and then they bring it down, and what do they do? Jam it up at the end of the day. This bar was the low of the day, and then they couldn't even keep it down, not even a penny. And then you just saw this massive reversal. That signified that we had buying coming in here. Now, what's fascinating about this is we have this V that's about 10 points. So clearing this, we could be looking at about $60. And frankly, when this moves, it moves like this. You have these little, like 2-3 days. And I think we're setting up for something like that, like a 2-3 day, push. So watch this 50-30 level. And that's definitely something that can rip there, and you should be able to see this channel as well. And I'll just draw it real quick. So, right, so you can see that channel. See how we bounced off the low of that channel, and we opened right below it, and then now we're up. So you have a lot going on here, and what you do to determine the channel is you really should clone the lines so that they look almost exact. But let's just go here, and you can see where you're at, right? You can see that channel, and you can see how we're in the lower end of it. So this has room. This has 10 points before we hit that upper channel. So PL I've had on this list for a while, something that I've been watching, and I really need to break that 54, 55 key zone range. So let's just call it, I think I put it at 55.25, put the stop out there at 55.25, but let's get rid of the stop for a moment just so you can see what's going on here. So this is a daily on PLL, and let's see what's going on here. See this little wedge? See how we're not getting above these on the weekly, but we still have this falling wedge. So we're setting up to curl on the daily. Now, if you look at the weekly, you can see right where we closed. Right? You see that level? So look at how we're respecting it. So that could be your stop. If you close below there on the weekly, that would be something that you could consider getting out of. But let's look at what's going on here. And a break to the upside of this not only gets us this as a point, but it gets us this. And I hope you guys are starting to follow this pattern a little bit. But look at this. Right? And then look at this. So you jump back, you go up to this level, you're back in this channel. If you get back in that channel, let's get rid of that one. If you get back in that channel, I'm going to use those highs right here. So I want to keep them parallel. And that's interesting, isn't it, how we can't close above that upper channel. So, but you see what I'm saying? See how we get up here? And now you'd be in the 70s off a simple little move. So this should definitely be on your watch list, this PLL. This one has a possibility of actually making it back into the newsletter. I was a little apprehensive to do it at first because I kept getting these red bars. Friday gave me confirmation, so I may put it in there with a new price and target. But it looks to me like all we did, frankly, was get this out of weak hands this week. That's really what it looks like to me. Look at all this low selling, all this crap, right? Excuse my language, but it's just noise. Look at all this. Look how big this is. It's monstrous in comparison to this. I mean, just look at the dichotomy between the two. And what's starting to happen again? A green bar that's higher than 4 of the 6 weeks of selling, right? Close right at the 5 or the 8 day. And I'm liking this. I would like it to be a little stronger, but we have the undercut of support, so everybody thinks it's over and they panic and sell, right? Which you're supposed to, you have to set a stop somewhere. So we should be able to get back to here. Now, this is a very simple trade if it's not in the newsletter. If you break the low of the day of this, you're going lower, okay? This is very simple. See how it would be a failed wedge breakout. But, so at this level, at this $34 level, to close here is like 31, 31 and a half. You could even use the open as the close, 32, depending upon your risk aversion. And you have 10 points here, 10, 12 points. So as long as I can get the risk reward to 5 to 1, which is really what I'm looking for the newsletter, that's really where it makes sense to play. So this is something that I would definitely take a look at. And if you look at this on the weekly, just really quickly, you're not going to get a ton of data because we need 30 points. But on a weekly basis, we have not, since we broke above that 2 weeks ago, we have not closed above that. Now we have an inverted red hammer. I would like it to have been green, but it's still there. So it's definitely still a data point. So that's it, and I'm probably going to have a video at the end of this just walking through how to determine probability and percentages on how to calculate risk versus reward and how many times you need to be right. Just a simple equation that I think you may find helpful. That's it.